Hi, my name is Marcos, and this is my house. It's a 1906 colonial cottage. I think that's maybe what it's called. And it was built as refugee housing for victims of the earthquake in San Francisco at that time. So these houses weren't built to the best standards, none of this old fashioned quality here on this street. So when I bought this house 3 years ago, I not only had to gut it down to the studs, but even the studs had to go. About 95% of the house was redone. And that allowed me to sort of indulge in my fascination and my obsession with all things sustainable. So, everything from the appliances to the insulation to the construction methods, everything I did really was keeping sustainability in mind. And thus, I was able to build a house that really is on the cutting edge of sustainability today. All right, come on in. So as I mentioned, I was able to build this from the ground up. And the first sort of step was in making sure that the building envelope was as insulated as absolutely possible. There's no glazing, no windows on the east side of the house. There's also none on the west side over on this front part of the house, but that's because I have a twin house, as you saw from the outside shots. So the windows, everything was to standards that may have passed passive house certification if I actually had gone through the trouble. I didn't because I didn't need a fancy plaque. What I needed to do is I needed to see those results on my heating bill, on my electricity usage. So the entire house is electrical. There is no gas. And the entire HVAC for the house is actually this unit right here, this head unit that's connected to a heat pump outside. And this essentially heats the entire house to about 1,000 square feet. My bedroom, which is way in the back, as you can see, my bedroom gets a little cooler. Doesn't fully heat the bedroom. I don't care because I like it cooler. I like to sleep cool. So it actually worked out really nicely. So it's sized really well to keep the house up front, this living area, nice and comfortable. So, excuse the Girl Scout cookies. I have two nieces, so I stocked up to help them out. But this is my kitchen. As I mentioned, I don't have gas, so my cooking is all done on an inductive stove. And not only does it allow me to safely heat and cook meals for my family, it makes sure that nobody gets burned because it stays relatively cool. And my favorite part is after I'm done, cleaning it out is as simple as just wiping it off, and then I'm done. Hi, welcome to my room. So I start by having a all-in-one washer and dryer by LG. What's really great about this thing is that it's a heat pump dryer, so it actually does not get very hot. It means that it does not use a lot of electricity. It actually extracts moisture from the clothes, and it protects the clothes from being burnt or overly damaged by high heat. Now, the trade-off is that doing a load of laundry, the washing and drying cycle is about 5 hours. Now, for me, that's okay. I put it on in the morning. In the evening, I come back. I don't have to move clothes over. It's all done and clean, and it actually uses a fraction of what a traditional washer and dryer uses. Also, this room, there's incredible amount of insulation at the top, basically double whatever code was. We just kept adding on it. It means that this room stays very cool and very warm in the summer. There is some east-facing glazing, but it's these really small windows up here off camera right now, but it allows some light to come in without really losing a lot of heat. And if it gets too warm in here, which is rare, I can just turn on this extremely energy efficient fan to make sure that things are nice and cool in this bedroom. So this is my backyard. This is a small Berkeley lot, and so there's not a lot of space. But what I did is I actually planted all native California plants. I think there may be, obviously the lemon is not native. There's some stuff that has survived the previous owner, but it's mostly um, California native plants, and it's a new garden, so it's still looking a little scraggly, and it's still early in the year. But I love the idea that once everything is established, I'm not going to have to water anymore in the summer. So that was a big factor. I really, really want to reduce my water footprint. So this is the sort of the brain of all this sort of high-tech technology in the house. I have over here, I got my air to water heat pump. It actually sends it to this whatever that thing, this tank. Tank. But notice, even, I've highly insulated every single pipe. What I actually did is I would actually move my hand around the pipes, and if I felt any kind of heat whatsoever, it meant that it was losing energy, and so I wrapped that up as tight as I could until I could no longer feel any energy loss. Over here is my air to air. It's my HVAC, my air conditioning, and my heating. It's a nice little bonus that there is air conditioning, and you think, well, why would I need air conditioning in Berkeley? Well, because nowadays when it's hot, it's also fire season, and the air is absolutely terrible. So not only did that keep my house nice and cool with the windows closed, but it actually also filtered the air from outside. So I had nice, healthy, clean air for my family and me, and it was nice and comfortable. And being a heat pump, it's incredibly energy efficient. Over here, if you back up a little bit, I have 2 Tesla batteries. These are each 12 kilowatts of storage. This is tied to my solar, which I guess we haven't talked about yet. So I have about 7 kilowatts of solar capacity, and not only does it power my house, but it charges these batteries. I'm able to have power in the case of disaster. I'm not worried about PG&E shutting off my power, but it also means that I can power the house via battery at night. And here we are in late February, and I'm already generating enough power to 100% be off grid. So the way it works is that in November, I start using grid. By the last week of February, I've stopped using grid. So about 4 months of grid. The rest of the time, I'm self-sufficient, and I'm kicking power back to the grid. So this is a great place to sort of show what I'm talking about when I talk about extra insulation on the walls. So typical wall is 2x6, and you got a little bit of extra siding or whatever, so maybe about 8 inches wide, 8 inches thick. This is over a foot wide, and you can sort of see that this is all one mass of insulation, and that's the entire envelope of the house, except there's a part of the house where it's too close to my neighbor, so I couldn't do that part of the house. But this actually is one of the reasons that I'm able to heat and cool the house with just a single unit upstairs. So that's really an important part of just having a nice and comfortable house. So come back here. Talk about how the ability to have solar and then the battery and get a good sense of how much capacity I have gives me the ability to actually spend, I consider about spending energy on things that I really care about. So here I actually have a sauna that's large enough for me to do hot yoga in. It's extremely energy hungry. So it uses about 4 kilowatt hours, 4 kilowatts in an hour of usage. That's a lot. At some points, that's about 20% of my entire home usage. But I know I have the capacity because I have all this excess power. So I can either sell it back to the grid or send it back to the grid, or I can use it on things that are kind of fun and interesting. And that way I'm not depriving myself. I'm not living a life of deprivation and making things miserable for myself. In order to live green and to be carbon negative, I can actually do fun stuff like my hot yoga. So I'm a metrics guy, and every aspect of this house is actually tracked. I track how much electricity I use, what appliances are using that electricity. I track my vampire power, that is the electricity that sort of is just background noise, like the television, how much it sucks when it's turned off. And I track my solar, I track what the battery is doing. I even track my water usage, and so I actually have a meter on my water main, so I can see how much water I'm using per day. And it tells me what appliances are using water. And not only does it let me know if there's any leaks, but it also lets me know, okay, I'm using too much water for irrigation, or I'm in a sweet spot. And gotta say, I'm pretty much usually in that sweet spot. So when you're into sustainability the way I am, there is always a what's next. And right now there's a big French drain around the house. that empties into a cistern that's about 80 gallons. And there's a creek that runs in my backyard. So yeah, in the winter when it rains, the cistern sort of fills up with water, spits it out into the street, and that's okay because there's plenty of rainwater. But what happens is that in the summer, I realized last summer, it actually fills up with water from that underground creek. So what I want to do next is create a way to be able to use that water to irrigate my plants. Like I said, they're not very water intensive in the summer, so I don't need a lot of water. I may be able to take care of all my water needs by pulling from that cistern. And so that's my next project this year.